do anything at all. I want to give a full In Soccer We Trust salute to our YouTube community for all of your support, hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Please keep that coming. It means a lot to us. Also, some of the players of the U.S. men's national team player pool just decided to pop off this weekend as we obviously get closer to the final cuts for the World Cup team. Maybe not. It does get a little bit close. Anyway, that is unless you're Sergino Dest, because apparently Xavi told him he could leave Barcelona, which is a little bit yikes. Anyway, let's get after it. We've got a lot to talk about. Let's go. Yes. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another exciting installment of In Soccer We Trust with your three favorite former U.S. men's national team players, Jimmy Conrad, that's me, Charlie Chuckwagon Davies, and Hollywood Heath Pierce. And we are excited because we have a lot to dive into today. A lot of U.S. men's national team players popped off this weekend. Lots of big stats, especially in a position in the field, attacking position. Haji Wright, I'm looking directly at you. He's got 9 goals and 2 assists in his last 7 games. The guy is popping off, including a goal and an assist this past weekend of the Turkish Super League. He's on fire. We got Tim Weah having a man-of-the-match performance, goal and an assist for Lille against Nice, a 3-1 win for Lille. His first goal in Ligue 1 this season. So actually, I'm going to go to our resident striker, Charlie Davies, first. Charlie, let's talk about Haji Wright and Tim Weah. This is a great time for guys to start scoring. Jesus Ferreira obviously scored this weekend as well for FC Dallas. I mean, we might have a number 9 problem. Too many options now, which is kind of the exact opposite of what we've been talking about before. Charlie, give me your insight on these 3 particular players.
I wouldn't go that far in terms of too many bright, brilliant 9 options. Now, there are a number of players who can play the 9. It's figuring out what's the best fit and who's going to have the most success and impact within this group. Haji Wright is intriguing to me because of his size and his speed. Getting a chance to see some of his goals and assists, he can run the channel. He's strong. He can hold up the ball. That's what the U.S. needs, somebody who can stretch the back line. And then Timothy Weah, we all know he can play the 9. He's shown at times that the attributes needed to be successful, whether he's playing right wing back or right attacking midfielder. He shows that he can, one, stretch the back line, good runs, and now he's starting to show that he can finish in front of goal. We saw that against Jamaica in the qualifiers, but most recently just putting pressure on back line, starting the press, creating something out of nothing. That's what I love from our strikers. So can they come back? Can they check in? And then can they make the run in behind? And then Jesus Ferreira is playing like a man on a mission. He's leading MLS in goals. He's showing that, hey, I can get in behind too. I'm not just all about checking too. So I think for Gregg Berhalter, it's great because it feels like anybody who's a forward and who can potentially play for the U.S. men's national team, the alert's out there, perform, and you're going to get an opportunity. And it feels like everybody's ready for that challenge and is hyped and wants a chance.
All right, everybody, you're listening to Gregg Berhalter's favorite podcast, In Soccer We Trust. We appreciate you guys being here with us today. Hit like and subscribe if you're listening on podcast form. Subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, ISWT Pod on the Twitters. Heath Pierce, I'm going to throw it over to you. Not only did Tim Weah and Haji Wright have a goal and an assist this past weekend, Ferreira had 2 goals this past weekend. Luca De La Torre had an assist for Heracles. Richie Ledezma had his first goal for PSV, which is a big deal. Mihailovic from Montreal, another goal and an assist. He's got 7 goals and 4 assists this season. We got a lot of players, not only ones that we are already in the player pool, but ones that are trying to break into it and become potential, not necessarily starters, but be a part of that 23 or 26-man roster that's going to go to Qatar. I think Haji Wright, for me, if I'm going to put money on anybody that I think will end up making the team, I got my money on Haji Wright. But any other performances stand out for you if you want to talk about the guys we've already discussed?
Yeah, I mean, again, it showed that the fact that it took till the end of the season for Tim Weah to have his first goal is a little bit disappointing, right? In terms of being an attacker that we want, in terms of putting up numbers. He hasn't had a lot of assists either. Now, I am one that I don't always hold that to I don't hold it to a standard that's unrealistic. We've all played on teams where there's guys that are just constantly setting up plays, setting up goals. Lille have struggled in general, so he's one that I'm almost a little disappointed in that he's left it this late. Obviously, there's been some injuries and things like that. I'm interested to see what's next for him in terms of that club. What Lille means. Lille's not going to be a European contender next year. They're not, it's going to become the Lille that we've probably known them as if you've followed Liga over time. But overall, the one that in terms of performances over the weekend, isn't so much the U.S. men's national team. It's actually Materazzo's, who we talked about, keeping Stuttgart in the league. You know, they went into the weekend in the last place, which is the playoff between the first and second division. And in the 92nd or 93rd minute, got the goal to keep them in the league. We talked about his impact. We talked about what he means for the club. And to be able to do that, I think, is massive and sort of makes him a little bit of a legend, which is worth noting over the weekend that people didn't see. Stuttgart were 1-1 in the final moments. They got a goal in the end. He was running all over the field. You could see what that meant. So overall, in terms of the weekend in review, that was one that I thought was one of the biggest moments. But it was good to see, you know, Tim Weah getting on the score sheet. Haji Wright, again, a player that was sort of criticized with his player pathway at the time by going to the New York Cosmos, looking to find his feet, to have this level of quality that he has in the Turkish league, I think is great. And I know you said it in jest, Jimmy, that we've got all of these options at number 9 now, but it is nice to see guys scoring at a high.
It was kind of jest, but not jest as well. I'm excited. I'm genuinely excited that we have some players that are doing something of note, that are at least giving us pause, and I assume the same for the coaching staff. Yeah,
and Jesus Ferreira is another one that's, I think, what is it, 9 in 11 games or something like that. He's in fantastic form. So there are players that are contributing, and maybe I just need to make peace with the fact that while they aren't Christian Pulisic at Chelsea goals or quality or the league or competition, scoring goals is hard in any league. And the fact that we do have guys scoring goals, I want to see that compete in the national team. But more than anything, convert or translate into the national team. You know, again, I look at Ferreira and I'm like, he's kind of a withdrawn 9 and he has a lot of tools to add, but could he be the 9 for the national team? And when I look at Haji Wright, I'm like, can it convert to the national team? When we look at some of the other players, scoring, Jordan Pefok one, can it convert? Can it translate to the national team? That's my biggest worry right now. Is form is one thing, that becoming, you know, I'm actually curious at Charlie's thoughts on that, on the difference of form of the club level and then converting that into not just scoring for the national team, but showing a level of quality that's international quality.
Take it away, Charlie.
I think for me, you need to carry your club form into the national team camps. Now, if Christian Pulisic isn't playing with Chelsea, he's going to play at the U.S. men's national team. But I think it's evident that when he does come into camp, he's not the same Christian Pulisic that we've seen, because he doesn't have the rhythm and the form. He's still catching up with match fitness. So it does benefit you a ton. I mean, you look at Haji Wright, he has scored in 7 straight games with his club. And of those 7 games, they tied Trabzonspor, who is the league winner, third place Konyaspor, and Alanyaspor, who's 5th place. So he's scoring against the top teams in the league. That goes a long way. He's playing he's at his peak right now in terms of where he is and how he's feeling and confident. So I think this would be a great time to call him in to see, hey, how does he fit with this group, and what is his quality, and how does it match up with some of the other players that we have. So that's a good moment for Haji Wright to go in. And then Richie Ledezma, I don't necessarily know if he'll get a call, because he's just coming back from ACL injury. He looked
fast in that goal, by the way. He looked fast.
He does. But also take into account, that's the last place team in the Eredivisie. That's the last place team, Pexwold. 2, PSV is the 2nd place team in that league, right? They're in Champions League qualifiers for next season. I think for next year, this is a great way to finish the season, because next year, I think they've always been hyped about Richie Ledezma's skill and quality. Next year, he has a real shot of getting considerable playing time. So I'm hyped about his future, because he is a special player in terms of a midfielder who can score goals and create, which we need. We need more of a player who can be a number 10, and he can be that guy.
Jimmy, so real quick for you, I got a question on Haji Wright. If this was November, is he going into your final camp?
For me, 100%. Yeah. Because of the things that Charlotte. Yeah, you have to take him. I mean, because you can't. It's one thing to ask of striker to hit that switch. You know that he's capable of it, but if he's not playing that way currently, and Charlie can speak to that, and we can all speak to this. If you're not playing that way currently, and then all of a sudden you put on the U.S. jersey and all that, you're going to hit this switch and be another version of yourself. I think there is an argument and a narrative to be built around that. But I'd rather go with the hot hand, somebody who is currently playing well, and not that we're hoping that they play well based on previous experience. And I'm sure we could come up with plenty of examples, both club and country, where that doesn't work out. You
can also throw in just fitness in general. You don't have to worry about fitness.
The sharpness, right?
Sharpness, fitness. And I'd say in a camp, throw in anyone who's, especially at the 9, because I feel like that's the one position that we're really unsure of as far as the future. I mean, Jesus Ferreira is playing like it's his, and he wants to keep it. But in a camp, you can throw in many players who maybe have not been in previous camps and get a look, because all in the end, it's just about getting a look.
So what I want to add to, and I'm glad you brought that into it, Charlie, is the fact that Jesus Ferreira, to your point, is grabbing this with both hands. He must be having conversations, or people ask him probably after every game. So do you think this will translate into playing in a World Cup? Do you think, I mean, he has to be thinking about it. He has to be getting questions from family and friends, of course, about where he stands and I mean, we all went through it, so we know those questions are happening. And then you got to answer it publicly. And especially with social media being more prominent, you got to deal with all the comments that are happening there. He looks like one of the only players in the number 9 spot that's really taking this opportunity and trying to make it his. And I think Haji Wright's another one who could probably sense it's kind of now or never for me to maybe get on this team. This is a great time to go on a run. And he's really also elevated his game. Whereas, not to say he's getting the opportunities, but I did want to bring this up. Ricardo Pepi. Now, Augsburg played this weekend against Greuther Fürth. Greuther Fürth already going down. A meaningless game. Augsburg is already safe. They're going to stay up. Ricardo Pepi dresses and doesn't play. I can't tell you how frustrating that is that he doesn't play. Now, I just want to say that there's a 23-year-old Timothy Tillman who's played in 29 games for Greuther Fürth. He came through the Bayern Munich youth system. He can play for the U.S., as can his brother, Malik. And I think we're identified both of them. Those are 29 games in the Bundesliga. Sure, they're going down. He plays in the midfield. I think he might be worth taking a look at as well. But what do we say? I'll go to you first, Heath, on Ricardo Pepi and how disappointed you are that the Augsburg coach couldn't find any goddamn minutes for him in a meaningless game. That's ridiculous. Now, I know the Augsburg coach resigned after this game, which is great news for everybody, I think, but especially for Ricardo Pepi. But still, that really frustrates me.
Well, if anything, it makes things more complicated for Ricardo Pepi now, right? Because now you've spent all this money on him. That coach was clearly that was a signal of intent. Last game of the season, your most expensive player, a young up-and-coming, what we think could potentially be a star goal scorer, is on the bench and doesn't play. It was like this, I'm going to go out. I want to finish on a high. I want to finish with a win, and that guy can't get me the win. And then I'm going to just sort of sail off into the sunset. Whereas now you're going to have another coach come in, a coach that didn't buy Ricardo Pepi, a coach that didn't sign Ricardo Pepi, who's now got the pressure of a $20 million signing and have to figure out what you do with him.
But now, at least you know that going in, though. It didn't seem like this Weinzer that ever really wanted him. It didn't seem like an American ownership.
You'd be as shocked at how often a club will buy a player that a coach doesn't want. Or a sports director and a coach don't get along.
Romelu Lukaku.
Yeah, the amount of time it happens, and it's at the detriment of the player, right? You have somebody like the coaches on the field, and yeah, they're part of the signings, and they should be. And when things are sort of rhythmic or fluid, they work together. But a sporting director on a board or an ownership group can go out and be like, we need to have a splash. We need to go get this big signing. And a coach could be like, but that doesn't help me. I need somebody now because we're fighting relegation. And so I understand both sides of that argument. But now you have a new coach that's got to come in. And I'm hoping that you go preseason, June, July, or whenever it's going to be, say July. And that coach, they have a talk beforehand that's like, either you're going to be part of my plans as a starter, or we're going to send you out on loan. That's the best case scenario now, because the new coach is going to come in. The club's going to be like, hey, we just spent all this money. Try with this guy. And again, Ricardo Pepi still has to do his job. He has to score goals. He has to contribute. He has to train hard. He has to do all the things that make a professional good and develop. But if you're Pepi's agent or representatives, you've got to be carving out this, hey, like 5-6 weeks, and maybe even through the start of the season, first couple games, and we're going to make a decision on his future, at least to send him on loan somewhere else where he can get games.
Okay, Charlie, I know you want to chime in here, but I want to throw another name out there. Tyler Adams only got to play the last 18 minutes for RB Leipzig this past weekend, and in a game that they needed to win, and they didn't get the win, but they still kind of backed into finishing in the top 4, very similar to Chelsea last season. The last day or last weekend. And I feel like he's another one that probably needs to move, because it doesn't feel like their manager, Domenico Tedesco, really sees him as the guy. So it's going to lead to Sergino Dest, because Xavi said he could go. But I kind of want to hear your thoughts on what Pepi's situation and Tyler Adams, because there's a lot of guys now that I feel like are in the balance. And this is a big summer, obviously, because you want to get on that World Cup team. You want to be playing with your team, not sitting on the bench and hoping you get 15 minutes.
Well, I can tell you one thing. If you're in Ricardo Pepi's shoes, you're looking at what Jesus Ferreira is able to do. Someone you were playing over in FC Dallas. And now he's a man on fire. 9 goals, leading Major League Soccer. You're
got that
sitting
new
on the
contract
bench.
too. Got that big contract to stay home.
Got that big contract. You're in Germany, not playing. It feels like you've hit rock bottom. And this is a good moment for Ricardo Pepi to build off that resilience, that character, to show that, hey, okay, the coach that didn't believe in me, he's gone. That gives me hope heading into preseason. And that's got to be his mentality is, I got to play next year and I got to be the number 1 striker. So I have to come in fit and in form. I would have liked to still see him in the national team camp, even though Gregg said, hey, we're going to give you a rest. For me, that's you're not playing right now, so I can't call you in. And let me dress it up as I'm giving you a mental break. I think it would benefit him to be in camp just to get the sharpness right to head into preseason. Now he's probably got to stick around the training facility and just work, because whoever that new manager
scored in
is,
8 months or 9 months. It's almost 9 months.
You have to impress. And then I think in terms of Tyler Adams, the player who was playing in front of him has been linked to Bayern Munich. So if he does go, there's your, he's the natural replacement.
Right.
And a lot of teams across Europe already value Tyler Adams. So it's either they sell Lamer, who's playing in front of him, or he stays or he gets sold somewhere else. So I think Tyler Adams, I'm not really concerned about him. Just
I am.
His mentality and the way he plays.
Go ahead, Heath.
I mean, my only worry is that, again, Tedesco doesn't clearly, I mean, again, it's all relative to a new season. Tyler Adams has shown he can be a consistent starter in the team when he's not injured and things like that. But I do wonder about Tyler Adams being so versatile that he's almost settling in under Tedesco as a guy that you can use at any point.
Super utility guy.
Super utility. And the fact that you've got a long season, you're going to be in playing Champions League and all these things, that he's that one where if you sell on Lamer, who do you bring in to compete for Tyler Adams? And maybe he's going through and don't get me wrong, I want Tyler to be fighting for his spot all the time because I think it's going to get the best out of Tyler. But if a manager has an idea of like, maybe he's not the guy that I need there, is he just going to sell one and then go on and look for one, knowing that there's going to be another 19 or 20-year-old up-and-coming or 21-year-old up-and-coming player that fits within the system that they can bring in to be the next guy that they want to sell to Bayern Munich? And Tyler Adams might fall victim to that. But that's a player you worry about? I mean, of all the U.S. men's national team players, only worry about his situation. Only because of the fact that I'm not worried about his situation. There's plenty of players I'm worried about. Go on to any list, and we've got about 14 guys in Europe this weekend that were dressed but did not play, or at least they're dressing. That's good. But it's more the fact that like Tyler Adams is a player that's crucial for us, and I'd hate to see another 6 months go by where he is, in one, out two, playing the closing 17 minutes, used sparingly, where it just sort of feels like, again, another conversation needs to be had in this offseason of saying, is a new challenge out there for Tyler Adams, where maybe he's going to have to go and compete anywhere at the size of a club that RB Leipzig, but he's going to get a fresh start to compete and a fresh set of eyes to get that time and earn the respect of a new manager.
No, I love that. Great insight from both of you guys with regard to that situation. We'll see how that plays out, of course. Let us know, everybody, where you're listening or watching from. We got people from Seattle, Vancouver, Orlando, LA, Connecticut, Dallas, Long Beach. Hit us up on Twitter, ISWT Pod. Let us know where we have fans, because we obviously trying to build this community and make it as inclusive as possible.
Just to answer Nate's question, Jimmy, Arsenal have spoken many times about how they value Tyler Adams and how they would bring him into their team. He would fit in Arsenal system. So that's a massive club, Nate, just so you're aware. And that's just one of many teams in Europe that have expressed an
Massive's
interest.
A bit strong, Charlie.
Massive, baby. Massive.
Massive.
Arsenal's not a massive club. Come on, man.
They're big. I'm just kidding. They're not invincible as they once were, but yeah, they're getting back to where they want to go. Well, Newcastle's got the oil money. Get off my back. So I don't know if Nate also mentions that he thinks Tyler Adams has hit his ceiling. I don't think we know that yet because he hasn't necessarily been trusted as the guy. So he is for the U.S., but he isn't necessarily for his club. And until he gets those run of games, I don't think we really have scratched the surface of maximizing his potential. That's my counter to you on that one, Nate. But let's now transition over to Sergino Dest, because it's been announced that Xavi, the manager of Barcelona, has reportedly given the green light for Sergino Dest to exit from Barcelona. Xavi feels that with the arrival of Cesar Azpilicueta from Chelsea, together with the one-year renewals of Sergio Roberto and Dani Alves, that would fully cover the right back position. Also, for people to take into consideration, a bunch of those guys are old. Not Sergio Roberto's not as old, but I do think that they're trying to move some money in the books, and getting Dest, who I think still has probably a little bit more value than those other guys, could come into the equation. So the big question here is, and I want to get into a debate because I'm very curious as to where you guys think Sergino Dest should go. We obviously know that he's got a lot of growth. He hasn't hit his ceiling either, but what's the best system for him to flourish? Because, and I want to throw this out there, I'm going to use Denzel Dumfries, who went to Inter Milan for only 12.5 million euros, even though he played for the Holland in the Euros in 2020 or 2021, summer 2021. He had 2 goals in 4 games, clearly shown that he could do the business, had over 125 games for PSV in the Eredivisie, but didn't really make that big step to Inter Milan. Pepi comes in, fantastic in the transfer market, gets him. I think it's a steal. They're going to try to replace Inter Milan with Achraf Hakimi, and I think Dumfries has done a pretty good job. He's not the same as Hakimi, but he's got some qualities that getting Inter close. We're down to the last weekend to see if they can catch Milan at the top. But it was a good signing, and I feel like if Dest could go for that number, where he's in that $12.5 to $15 million range, I think you could see a Bayern Munich take a flyer on him, or you could see a Chelsea take a flyer on him, or a club of that, because he's not that expensive. But if Barcelona's out there asking for 25, 30, I feel like they could get stuck here. So I'm kind of curious. Charlie, I'll come to you first. Sergino Dest, what do you think his best situation is? Yeah, give me your thoughts. I'm very curious.
I think in terms of his defensive responsibilities, that's the concern for a lot of these top clubs. They don't worry about Sergino Dest getting forward and creating chances, in some cases scoring goals. That's not the worry for Sergino Dest as a right back or right wing back. It's defensive. Are you strong enough? When you talk about the English Premier League, it's a very physical league with big wingers. If I'm a winger, I'm looking at going at Sergino Dest because he hasn't shown to me yet that he's going to be tough as nail and defend first, because that's his responsibility first. Come transition, you have to defend. You have to be in a good position and make sure that you can support the back line. I feel like it's too inconsistent with Sergino Dest. Given that, I think Atletico Madrid, if he's going to stay in La Liga, might be a good fit because the 3 behind him are very defensive. And I think the starting point is very defensive because of the way that they play. Maybe that could be a good spot for him because counterattack, transition, get forward, use the width.
Wait, who did you say, Charlie? Who did you say? What club?
Atletico Madrid. Because they will, I think, help train him
how to play
mentally about being a defender first and then position tactically, which would ultimately benefit him in the long run. And then if you're looking at Serie A, Juve might be a good spot for him. And it's a spot you can make the move from Barca to Juve. And I think just because Juve dominates typically those games in possession, it might be a great spot for him.
Okay. All right. Now, before we get to Heath's thoughts and my thoughts about this, we had Fabrizio Romano, the transfer guru who works with us here at CBS Sports. He also commented on the Sergino Dest situation. Let's listen to what he had to say right now.
King of Ajax, a former Ajax player, Sergino Dest hasn't been the best situation with him when Xavi has arrived. What's the latest with him?
Yes, he's one of the players to watch this summer because if an important proposal will arrive for Barcelona, could be an opportunity to make money. As we mentioned before, for Frankie de Jong, they need to sell some player. As you mentioned, was not an easy season for him. But at the same point, if they receive an important bid, it could be a possibility for him. So let's see what happens with English clubs, because Bayern have always been interested in him, but they're signing Mazraoui on a free from Ajax, so they don't need a right back anymore. But for English clubs, it could be a chance. So let's see what's next for Sergino Dest, but he could be one of the players on the move at Barcelona.
All right, that's Fabrizio Romano with our Luis Miguel Echegaray. Make sure you go listen to the Que Golazo podcast. Great guests, and Fabrizio at least once a week. I think Heath and I hop on every once in a while as well. Now, Heath, throwing it to you. Sergino Dest, only 21, so obviously he's got a lot of his career ahead of him. What do you think will be the next best step for him? Especially got to take into consideration, he's going to probably feel that it's going to be, despite Barcelona's situation and them working through kind of this transitional period as a club overall, it's still going to feel like a step down if he goes to, let's say, a mid-tier team in one of the other top 5 leagues.
Yeah, it's hard to say what the right, because I agree what the right club is, because I agree with Charlie on the fact that it's defending. And part 2 of that is when you talk about Dumfries, when you talk about Hakimi, there's a verticality to their game that also transitions defensively, right? It's a speed play. They're good without the ball. Sergino Dest is best with the ball. So he needs to be in a system where he's getting the ball at his feet. When I think about that, I think about teams that are more possession-based versus even counterattacking teams. Because if he's going to, I just don't see that discipline of him willing to stay home and then get out on the counter. I see him, he's the kind of guy that if you look in games, he doesn't even want that ball way off into space. He wants it guided to him in front of him, but the ball at his feet where he can have combination play and do things with the ball. And so it limits him. When I think about Italy, I think about Napoli just because of their possession in the final third, things like that, where he can be in higher positions. I worry about Italy in general, just the style of play because of the need to defend. However, if he can commit to that in Italy, you tend to have more players around the ball. The field gets a lot more condensed. The field gets a lot smaller in the Italian game. Your opposite side fullback is pulled all the way over and things like that. So they try to condense the field into like small quadrants where I think it could play to his advantage, where it's not just him isolated like he would be in the Premier League, one-on-one, out of position, out on the wings, isolated, things like that, where I think he could struggle. So I think there are, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, do you feel like then he should go to a system that already has 3 center backs? Like when you look at Inter Milan, they have their, Bastonis, De Vrij, Skriniar, and then Dumfries and Hakimi were both really out and out wing backs. I mean, they got Perisic playing out wide left for them now, who's more of an attacking player. Do you think he should go to a system that's already set up to play to his strengths? Or do you feel like there's some value for him overall to like, well, maybe I should go to a team that has a back four so I can actually get better at defending, because that will probably, give me more longevity to my career?
Yeah, it's tough to say really, just because, you see in a lot of back fives or back threes, the wing backs do have to be able to cover a lot of ground, and they have to be solid on some level, at least respect the art of defending. And I think he's not great at that in either system. I think that could be a crutch for his development, as you said. And in a back four, he's going to have to really be willing to commit to that. I'm not saying he can't do it, because he can, because he's got all of the tools to be a good defender. He's just got to be able to understand that that's first and foremost. And I've seen him for long periods at Barcelona where he can defend and he does stay back. And there was long periods where he wasn't attacking as much at Barcelona, when they were trying to just grind out results and get through times where they weren't playing great, but still getting some during this sort of run of form that they had under Xavi. But I think about Spain. I think about maybe a Sevilla. I think about a Villarreal. I think about a big club that's decent in possession.
But you got to look at the players that they have too. You look at Napoli, for instance, and they have Giovanni Di Lorenzo. He's 28, and he's played 33 games. His value is 28 million. He's not going anywhere. I mean, and you got to think about competition. If you're Sergino Dest, you can't go into a team where you're not going to really play. You're not going to be the first option. You look at Juve, Danilo, he's 30. He's, kind of having some injuries. He's already hit his peak. He's coming down. Quadrado's the other right back. He's 33. DeSiglio, he's 29. So, I look at other teams, and you got to look at the competition, because Sergino Dest needs to play, just like Tyler Adams, just like all these other guys. You want him in a position where he's going to play. And if that means coming down off the pedestal of being like a top-tier Champions League club, then so be it, especially heading into a World Cup year.
What I wanted to add was, I think there's some value to potentially leaving a big club and joining a club that has a little bit of hype around it. I'll use a couple examples. One, Renato Sanchez, right? He goes from Benfica, helps Portugal win the Euros, immediately goes to Bayern Munich. Not a great fit. Doesn't really, really showcase what he's about. And there could be a whole number of reasons why that didn't work out. He goes to Lille, helps Lille win Liga, kind of against the odds in a league that PSG should always win, undoubtedly, every single season, given the money that they pump in. And then I look at Serge Gnabry, right? He goes to Arsenal at age 16, can't really get into the first team for reasons that just they got a lot of talent. Then he goes to West Brom.
I want that one back, Jimmy.
You want Serge Gnabry? Oh, of course you want him back, right? Because he proved what he was capable of. But he went on loan to West Brom, and Tony Pulis said he's not good enough to play at this level. The players that Serge Gnabry was playing behind is disgusting. So then he goes to Werder Bremen. He goes back to Germany. He grew up in the Stuttgart Youth Academy. And he goes to Werder Bremen, 11 goals in 27 games. And then Bayern Munich gets a clause, gets him for like 8 million, something crazy. And then he goes on loan to Hoffenheim.
It's called the Bayern clause.
Yeah, of course, Bayern clause. And then he gets into the team, and now he's guy's unbelievable. He's got 20 goals in 31 games for German national team. He is such an important player for their attack, Bayern. I mean, he's a Champions League winner. And West Brom didn't want this guy. It just makes it so insane. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not the end of the world for Sergino Dest, but I thought, okay, let's think about the Bundesliga. Serge Gnabry's using that. Jude Bellingham's doing well. Jadon Sancho used that as a platform. Gio Reyna, Christian Pulisic, Erling Haaland. Like, there's a lot of big names that can take that. And when I look at Borussia Dortmund in particular, they have a guy there, Thomas Meunier, who I don't really rate. And I think that they could benefit from having a Sergino Dest. He could be part of maybe a revolution of getting Dortmund to compete
But
with
is
Bayern.
Dortmund going to spend 20+ million on a right back?
If they think they can sell him on for 40, then potentially. I would say that Bayer Leverkusen is another like hipster team. They finished third in the Bundesliga, have a ton of talent, and they've got players there they've got Frimpong, who's okay at the right back position, but I think Dest is better. If they're both playing at their peak, I think Dest is better. And you got RB Leipzig. You got Angel Lino on one side that play in the 3-back system who bombs forward. You could have a little bit more balance of having Angel Lino and a Dest on either side. But Michele over there is pretty sick. I actually like him. So I would say Borussia Dortmund or Bayer Leverkusen could be really cool 2 spots where now you're starting to still going to play in the Champions League. And now you're punching up, whereas Barcelona has a different set of expectations. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And if you guys wanted any quick comments on that before we go to our break, but I don't know. There's something to be said for even a Sevilla, like Jesus Navas. I mean, they whip the ball in like anybody, and that can help.
There's a lot. I just think that Sergino Dest is one where I don't care. In most cases, if the system fits Sergino Dest, he's going to win out in a competition for a spot. If it's not a system that fits, then he's not going to win out. And now, having said that, Barcelona should have worked out for him, but that's a super club. It's a different level of expectation. But I do think that anyone that's going to fit his style of play, there's very few, I think, attacking fullbacks better than Sergino Dest is on the ball. It's just, again, that willingness to defend. I think he's going to win out in those situations. So I like the idea of putting him in a place where he's got to compete in a big club, as opposed to, when we say step back, I mean, what are we talking about? Mid table? Or are we talking about,
are we talking like Brighton in the Premier League? If they sell Lamptey, they'll have that right back position open.
That's a good shout.
Where they're good they play a good style of football. And if you think about the mid-tier level, he's going to play every game. Right. Is that something that would be beneficial for him under Graham Potter, who likes to play attacking style? Well,
you got Cucurella on the other side, and Cucurella clearly likes to get forward. I don't know. Brighton's actually not a bad shout, Charlie. You're chiming in with that one. You're getting 4, 5, 6, 7 really good opponents that you're playing. The other ones are always like, scrapping it out and fighting, but to be able to play against the Liverpools and the Man Cities and Chelseas, I think will only help him get better, but that's assuming, he goes out there and does the job. Hey, big conversation about Sergino Dest, but we're going to take our first and only break of the show. Thank you for hanging out with us today. When we come back, we're going to talk about other dual nationals that we want to see joining the U.S. men's national team, hopefully in this window, to bring them in a little bit and maybe take them to the World Cup in Qatar in November and December. And we'll talk a little bit about Christian Pulisic's performance in the FA Cup final. Don't go anywhere.
The land under our feet. Everyone is here to steal from it. Joe Pickett.
Game warden. What are you doing investigating a murder?
Who's there?
I'm going to enjoy running all you out of town.
Sometimes power is more powerful than the truth.
Can't even see where the danger's coming from.
Joe, what happened to your face?
Game warden business.
Welcome back, everybody, to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Heath Pierce. And that was some fun conversation about Sergino Dest and the good weekends that were had by some of our player pool. We're excited about, and obviously long may that continue as we have to decide, or we don't have to decide, but Gregg Berhalter and the coaching staff have to decide who is going to be in his hopefully 26-man roster. I hope they expand the rosters. Hopefully that'll be decided very, very soon. But we want to talk about dual nationals. We did talk about this. We tiptoed into the warm waters of this conversation last week, but I wanted to revisit it a little bit because we had another weekend to talk about some of these players. Charlie, I'm going to come to you first. Some names, I guess, for starters: Florian Balogun, Jonathan Gomez, Gaga Slonina, Caden Cowell, Malik Tillman, Timothy Tillman, Filippo Silva. Like, which players do you think do we really want to bring in and really try to court in some ways? I think we're getting to a point now where we have so many options from young players that have potential that we don't necessarily have to chase them anymore. We want them to come to us, be like, please, we want to play for you guys, whatever it may be. But maybe there's a short-term solution for some of these players. Maybe you're looking at Gaga Slonina, who's more of a long-term play. And do you think there's any positions with the fewest options? I mean, should we really be trying to recruit as many number 9s as possible, or any other areas of the field that you think need to be addressed? Charlie Davies, you're up first. Go for it.
Well, you know, I love to think of Gaga Slonina as a long-term play, but in terms of short-term, if you watched him play this weekend, I mean, the gaff that he had, which was, you know, he played a ball out of the back and it was poorly played, and then Cincinnati scores. And so you're thinking about right now, you know, a lot of people are thinking he's ready now. He's not ready. He's not ready right now. He's not.
Well, then neither is Zach
he's not
Steffen.
He's not anywhere near Matt Turner.
I mean,
right now.
I mean, if we're holding a mistake that he made in a game as a 17-year-old against him, I mean, Zach Steffen's
absolutely,
much older.
Absolutely. You're talking about Manchester City versus Chicago versus Cincinnati. Absolutely, I am. He's not ready for that level. But that's not to say that he won't be in the long term. He has a long way to go with his feet, and that's all I'm going to say in terms of a goalkeeper and being able to play out of the back. Long way to go. Still has to develop. But Matt Turner could do it, so anybody can do it, because I've seen his size 15s and the way they move it from the very beginning in 2016. So I think Florian Balogun is probably the one that I think of when in terms of needs right now, dual nationals. We need a striker. We need depth in that position. So it's not even just worrying about who's going to be the number 1. It's worry about who's going to be the super sub in that position and who can bring something to the game. So I would like to see him, and I think it'd be pretty easy to convince him to come over and give the U.S. men's national team a go, because I think in England he's far off from being one of the top candidates to make that break into that team.
Okay, so Heath, let's talk about Balogun. Martin Keown, who played for Arsenal for a long time, has compared Balogun to Arsenal's legendary striker Ian Wright due to his speed and his intelligent movements. He's clearly doing something of note, and he's on loan from Arsenal to Middlesbrough right now and had 3 goals in 18 appearances this particular season. Do you think it's worth giving him a flyer? Born in the United States, he's represented England at all the youth national team levels, but never represented the U.S. at any point.
Yeah, I mean, he's another player that I think about as when Yunus Musa first came in, and you just go, well, I don't know a lot about him. Yunus Musa was just starting to, you know, before this was Yunus Musa's name came up pre Valencia move, and you're like, well, not a lot of first team football. Where does he fit into it? And then we've now seen just Yunus Musa being brought into the national team, how complimentary he's been, where he's never thought twice about playing for the U.S. national team, how he loves it. He feels welcome from the very first moment he came in. And that's, I think, helped shape him as a player, knowing that he's got that part of his career sorted out, which is U.S. men's national team forever. Now, Florian Balogun has to figure that out on his own, but in terms of getting him in and around the national team, I think it would be really helpful. However, he's still got to figure out his club ball, what he's going to do at the club level. Obviously, he's at Middlesbrough on loan, as you mentioned. I don't think we've seen hundreds of players go through the Arsenal system, and where they end up is TBD. And Yunus Musa is one of them, right? And so I want to see him get sorted out on the club level thing, but I do think he is one that has a bright future for the national team, and having him in and around the national team, if that's what he wants to do, could be helpful and beneficial to his career.
Okay. Now, Gregg Berhalter came out and had a couple comments about dual nationals. I want to bring these up now. He wants them to choose with their heart is ultimately what he's been saying. He goes, the thing is, I always say I want them to choose with their heart. I want them to feel good about it. And could you imagine growing up with parents and having a really strong cultural background and then being able to play for the country of that background? I think that's special. Even though the United States has given them that opportunity, there's still this deep connection to their country, and some of them have to leave their country and want to go back, but they can't. And so for me, if a guy really chooses that, I'm happy for him, because that's what he feels in his heart. And I appreciate that Gregg has that perspective, and that we're not trying to, as Sergio just said in the comments, doing predatory cap ties just so, let's say, Mexico or another national team can't have these players, and then we discard those players, because that's not necessarily the business we want.
Well, Mexico tried doing that, right? And we've seen, again, that I don't know if his comments continue to do that. Doesn't he go on to talk about how
he does?
Yeah,
he basically said, this is Gregg Berhalter, U.S. men's national team manager, saying, when I speak to guys like Ricardo and Jesus, talking about Pepi and Ferreira and Jonathan Gomez, and have conversations with them, they feel a connection But it's not to Mexico. It's not always easy, though. I think that in general, I would like for our Latin players to be pushed more in a positive way, that we're looking to develop them more and putting more effort into developing the Latin community as well, because I think it's important. We talk to all these guys. We talk constantly to all these players. We're very engaged in this process. But I also realize that sometimes a player has it in their heart to do something else, and I'm fine with that. Charlie, thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the national team should be the guys who are in form, who are playing, who are the best. And for players who want to be a part of this country, who want to represent this country, it doesn't matter if you live here, if you were born here versus born in Europe or born in any other part of the world. If your parents are American and you feel like you want to represent the U.S. men's national team, in some cases, we can't be naive. Players don't have the opportunity to play for whatever country they're in. If Jermaine Jones, for instance, could have played for Germany, he would have played for Germany.
Right.
He would have never been in a conversation about playing for the U.S. men's national team. But that was not a possibility. He had, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Michael Ballack, all these players in front of him. So the U.S. men's national team offered him a chance of a lifetime to come represent them and play in a World Cup. And he took it with both hands. And then he was all about the U.S., putting tattoos of the flag all over his body. That's okay too.
Right.
If you want to represent our country, who are we to say, no, you can't play for us because you haven't spent X amount of years in this country? You're either all in or you're all out. I don't care about if your mom or your dad was born here or how much you've lived in this country. If you want to play for this country and represent this country, then you're all in. Fine. Then I'm all about it. But it's 100% commitment. That's all.
Yeah. I think the 100% commitment is spot on, and that has to be a necessity, a must at a minimum. But I remember, and I had my let's say criticisms of Jurgen Klinsmann. Okay, I'll put it that way. But one of the things I didn't mind was him broadening the player pool. And I remember that why is he doing that? Giving players here. Listen, just play better than those guys and you're going to be fine. But if you're going to sit there and bitch about, I'm not going to lose, just play better. If you play better, then everything's going to take care of itself, and so stop bitching. So that always kind of bothered me. But I found the quote that Heath was alluding to, the one directly about that Heath was saying with regard about Mexico. And this is what Gregg Berhalter said, which I thought was pretty interesting. I think that Mexico is really smart. They're going to talk to anyone that has a dual passport, and they're going to look them over. This is Berhalter. And they're working the numbers. The more players they can get, the more likely it is that one of them will contribute. He goes on to say, Gregg Berhalter, the track record's not great. And that's something the players should be aware of. The track record for guys going over to Mexico from the United States and actually contributing isn't there. And they're locking some of these guys in, and that's it. And for us, I urge the players to keep it open and see what happens, keep developing. But any player wants to feel wanted, right? Heath, this is the quote you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one. So you've got Ochoa, you've got Jonathan Gonzalez, you've got Santi Munoz, you've got Jonathan Gonzalez is a good example of a high quality player that was sort of the hype. Mexico got him, hasn't played for the national team. Now, playing the numbers is more at the youth level that you see a lot of. Right now, if you look at the U.S. and Mexico, both on the boys and the girls side, there are dual nationals just going back and forth. You got Cade and Chance Cowell. So Cade's younger brothers been in Mexico and with the U.S. There's players that are going back and forth at the youth level quite a bit now. And that's why it's not like there's these hidden players and it's this giant battle for these phenoms. You don't know how many of them are going to work out. You don't know how many of them are going to be consistently at the international level. And I also think that, Charlie talked about being all in. I don't think everyone that Jurgen Klinsmann brought were always all in or fully in. That was an issue. Now, 99% is different than 100%, and you're not always going to get it right no matter what. And people are going to have regrets. It's impossible. It's like when you go to college at 18 years old and somebody goes, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" You don't have any idea, right? And so when you talk about going through a lot of these things, people have to go through them. So there's no perfect system. We shouldn't ever be predatorially, if that's a word, trying to get players into the national team or make them want to commit to the national team. But there will always be an element of like, which one do I have a chance of making? In Balogun's case, playing for England would be unbelievable. Will he get a chance to play for England? I don't know. He's 20 and playing at Middlesbrough. And if he scores a bunch of goals, we've seen a number of strikers in England's history be called in, not at the big couple of clubs. We've seen a number of England's players now leave England to go play in places like Germany for a Dortmund to get called into the national team. And so there's a number of ways that can come together. It's just, I always think about, when I've had a chance to talk to Yunus Musa and he kind of talked about making his decision and how welcoming it's been. And there hasn't been a single moment that he thought, what if? And maybe that does tie into where else he could play or other national teams he could play and what the opportunities are. but he was all in on that. And it's been an incredible growth and trajectory for him in the national team, his role in the national team, and the fact that he's still a young player and deserving of a call-up.
Now, when I think about Balogun in particular and try to get into England, if Jared Bowen, who's absolutely lighting it up for West Ham, just scored 2 goals this past weekend against Manchester City, arguably one of the best defenses in the world, can't get a call up to the English national team, what chance does Balogun have? I mean, honestly,
he's definitely going to go to the World Cup, though. There's no way that Bowen.
Well, you have
to.
I mean, 18 goals, 11 assists in all comps this season for Jared Bowen, but. And I think if they expand to 26, I think Jared Bowen's definitely. I mean, that's he's our Haji Wright, baby. You got somebody who's red hot. How can you not bring him in? At least give him a look. So, but that's what those types of players who are maybe on the precipice of deciding which country they want to play for. They got to look at those players that are doing well on the fringes, and are they getting the look, or is that national team coach Gareth Southgate in particular still going to stick with? Now, listen, Phil Foden's tremendous, but for the national team, he doesn't play the same as he does for City. You know, for maybe the players that aren't necessarily performing but have the talent. It's tough.
I'll throw this in as well. Gregg Berhalter and Ernie Stewart, Brian McBride, they're smart as can be. It's not that they're not bringing these guys into camp.
You getting paid by U.S. Soccer, Charlie?
No, but I'm saying they were able to get Sergino Dest.
That is true.
They were able to get Yunus Musa.
Yeah.
I mean, right there is enough for you to say, hey, they can convince a dual national to come and play for the U.S. men's national team.
Well, they're all thinking about 2026 as well, right? They're part of this project now, and they're young. Like, you look over the last 2 years, that is a very young and excited and united group that's gone through qualifying now. They've gone through Nations League. They've gone through Gold Cup, different groups. I mean, pool's obviously like 60 players at this point.
But
like,
that's my point.
They're going through it all together.
They bring in players from the pool to see if they can cut or not. Gaga Slonina has been into camp. So Gregg Berhalter has gotten a chance to see a lot of these guys who haven't been capped yet and say, hey, is this guy ready to cap tie? Is he? Mm-hmm. And obviously he showed in training that he's not yet. He's not there. So I'm not going to make this guy put him in a game just to cap time and then eventually not play him for 4 years or 2 years or whatever it may be. I'm going to cap time guys that are going to play now.
Yeah. Well, it's irresponsible to the player, right? Is like, especially at that age, to almost you would imprison them into a national team that maybe you're there, maybe you're not. At 17 is pretty intense, unless he's going to be a starter or a contributor right away. I agree.
Yeah, so I don't want to hear is U.S. Soccer paying you, because I'm just preaching the truth here, the gospel.
Hey, you said they were smart. They were smarter than they were. What would you say? Smarter than anyone?
I didn't say that. I just said they're smart. They're doing their job. They're convincing dual nationals to play for the U.S. And these dual nationals are top young players.
Heath, you've been coming that hot on Charlie for many weeks about how Charlie hates U.S. men's national team.
I'm hitting him with that shield, that Captain America shield.
Well, yeah, that's why he got that paycheck. Now he's flipped. He's flipped the script. Now he's like, Venmo me. Now he's flipped. But I agree. Again, that was one of the things that Yunus Musa had said, was like the project being part of that, this excitement of young players, the crop of talent. This is not bringing players in because we need players for a World Cup. This is a project of helping to grow soccer in the U.S., helping to improve the national team. These guys are coming in as teenagers and early in their 20s, and they're part of shaping something for the future. And that's a pretty exciting thing if you're a young guy to be part of, if you're legitimately going to be part of that.
No, 100%. And there's a good comment here from Zach. What's up, Zach? Who says, talking about dual nationals, let's talk about Timothy Chandler, a 32-year-old right back for Eintracht Frankfurt, who's going to be in the Europa League final. He's played 5 times in the Europa League, Timothy Chandler. Do you think he deserves another call-in? I feel like we got that spot kind of locked up. Even if Dest is hurt, you got Cannon, you have Yedlin, you have who else? Not Brooks. We got a bunch of guys. Scally could play there as well. I feel like I'd rather see maybe a Joe Scally show up at right back than Timothy Chandler.
Just hearing all the talk of Timmy Chandler turning down call-ups, being like, nah, I don't want to. That's enough for me. And I'm sure that's made its way up the totem pole at US Soccer.
But okay, so let's I wonder,
based on form, you should bring him in. But if there's obviously more to that, because he hasn't been part of the picture for a long time, and this is a guy playing in Europa League.
Sure. But he's in the Europa League final, which is a pretty big deal that we have an American pitted against another American in James Sands for Rangers. Now, James Sands still a utility player, not playing all that much. Timothy Chandler a little bit more influential for Eintracht Frankfurt. But it would be pretty cool to see both of those guys on the field at the same time, which I don't think has ever happened before in the Europa League. And let's just go to there. Quick predictions. Who do you guys like in the Europa League final? Charlie, come to you first.
Oh, gosh.
Are you pulling for Rangers because there's a lot of Americans that have played there?
Yeah,
Mo Adu, DeMarcus, Claudio, Carlos Bocanegra.
I got some Rangers kits in my closet. I will. A lot of my boys would be hitting me up, being like, "You can't pick Frankfurt over Rangers." So I'm gonna go with Rangers just because I'm supporting Rangers in this one.
All right, okay, up the Gers. How about you, Heath Pierce? What are you thinking in this one? Because it feels like Rangers very good at Ibrox, maybe not as good away from home. And Eintracht obviously just playing on the vibes. It kind of got the Real Madrid vibes of the Europa League, where they just figure out ways to get results even when maybe they shouldn't. What are you saying in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Eintracht Frankfurt. I like the way that they've been able to grind. Again, both these teams haven't been the same Rangers all relative within the league because either you win or you don't in that league. But like Eintracht Frankfurt, same thing. Both this is what makes it complicated. Both these teams are like, this is what their whole season is sort of contingent on. And so, but I'm going to go with Eintracht Frankfurt just to play, pure vibes. Pure vibes. Yeah.
Well, Eintracht is currently 11th in the Bundesliga, finished the season in 11th. They need to win to get into the Champions League. That's one of the bonuses of winning the Europa League. You get an automatic spot into the group stages of the Champions League. This is going to be a great game. It's on Paramount Plus, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you go check it out. Come find the pregame shows. Lots to break down with these two particular matchups, or these two particular teams in this matchup. All right, from one cup final then.
Jimmy, you didn't give a prediction. What do you just
I'm going to go with Eintracht. No. Well, no, sometimes. But Eintracht, I'm going to go with Eintracht Frankfurt. Every time that I feel like I'm counting them out, again, they've got the Madrid vibes where they just figure out a way to get a result. If this game was at Ibrox, I'd go 1,000% Rangers, but it's not.
Yeah,
so
I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Eintracht. I think they're going to show up and do the business. And without Kamar Roof, and I don't know if Alfredo Morelos is going to play for Rangers, that hurts them a little bit. Though Tavernier has been excellent for them coming out of the right back position. Wish he played for the U.S. He's pretty good going forward, and would have been a good option for us to compete with some of the other players we have going. All right, now from one cup final that hasn't been played to one that did get played, FA Cup final. Unfortunately, Christian Pulisic and his Chelsea have lost 3 consecutive FA Cup finals. I think that is the first time that's happened in history. I actually thought Pulisic was pretty good. I thought he was finding some good space between the lines, created a couple of chances for himself and for other players. But there seems to be a narrative. He seems to symbolize something. There's always a player, I think, on every team that if the team doesn't play well, you blame that guy. And for a while, Chelsea had Lukaku, and Lukaku was out there. But it seems like Pulisic is starting to get some of that vitriol from Chelsea fans that he doesn't finish his chances, whereas he's the only one actually out there creating legitimate chances. He can't score all of them, you bastards.
He scored none of them, though, Jimmy. That's the problem. He scored none of them.
I know, and he's going to be held to that standard. But I feel like it's a little unfair, and I just wanted to kind of stand up and say that I think that at least Pulisic's out there creating opportunities. And it just feels like if you're going to hold him to that standard, then hold everybody else to the same standard, not your golden boy Mason Mount or Thomas Tuchel. Yes, he's obviously accomplished a lot of things in a short period of time, but I would start N'Golo Kante over Kovacic. You know what I mean? There's little things that I would have criticized him for as a manager. Anyway, I'm sure
Kante was coming off of an
I get it, but it's N'Golo Kante. Okay,
Charlie, let me ask you this then: do you think I agree with Jimmy's double standard of like he is the scapegoat? Okay. And is becoming that with Chelsea. But do you agree that the difference, like, is Christian Pulisic world class? And if he is world class, should he not be finishing it in the biggest game of the year with the chances that he had created, or is it? I know it's all fluid. I'm not saying that, but the way that we hold our global superstars that we see get chances, they finish them, they rise to those types of occasions. We've seen Pulisic do that with the national team. But at the club level, is that the difference, or is it just a game where he had some chances, didn't finish them, and we move on?
No, I don't think Christian Pulisic is world class yet. I think he has the potential to be world class, and you can't say that about too many players in the U.S. men's national team pool right now. And he's as close as the closest I think that we have to being world class. So he's on the verge. But I think what we need from Christian Pulisic to be world class, because he's obviously at a world-class club, is the result, the finished product, which is goals and assists. Because, like you said, he's creating chances. He's dangerous. I feel like injuries have been a problem, just derailing his form at times. But if he's to be, compared to Eden Hazard, it's in goals per 90, he's up there for his age among Premier League stars. But it's being consistent. The world-class players are consistent game in, game out, and not just one season, multiple seasons, 2, 3, 4. And if he's able to do that at Chelsea, let's say next year, if he does stay, then he'd be world-class. And doing it in a World Cup, that's world-class. He's just not there yet.
So I'm looking at the goals and assists so far for Christian Pulisic this particular season, 8 goals and 4 assists. And people going, well, Mason Mount, he leads Chelsea with 16 assists and all this stuff. But those guys
have actually, of assists.
Yeah, but he's also played a lot more minutes. And a lot of his goals came, I think, against Norwich, Mason Mount. That's me throwing some shade.
Would you say he's world-class, either of you two?
Mason Mount?
No, Christian Pulisic.
No, but that's why I'm saying the difference is I think a world-class Christian Pulisic takes over a game like that. He's so close, and then we fall short on just chances where, again, you look at the other top strikers or top attackers in the world, they gobble that stuff up. That's the occasion where they're converting.
I actually need we need to get world-class defined, because we're all going to have different interpretations of what world-class is. Because I've seen plenty of players that get in similar situations as Christian on the field, and they miss those. It's not
how many times though.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But
and which world class players are missing?
Let's go, Charlie. Let's attack this guy for a little bit.
I'm just trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand. Like
Charlie, we got him up against the ropes, dude. Just keep swinging, dude.
He's really.
Well, no. If you look
really
at
that line,
I am because I'm trying to have a nice debate here with you guys, but no, I think he's, when you say world class, there has to be a consistency there, and I totally agree with that. Lewandowski, Benzema, like those guys are world class. Now Vinicius might be a good example, because he went from a guy that got into good spots but couldn't finish, lacked that final product, and now seemed to figure out this season and has shown that consistency. And now I think you can put Vinicius into that world class conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Rodrigo is now.
But now he'll be held to that every single season, right? Of like world-class player. Vinicius got to do it next year. He's got to do it the year after that. Like he set a new standard. Whereas Christian Pulisic is right on the verge of like rounding that corner of being that goals and assists, plus all the things you see when you watch him on the field and he gets the ball in and around the ball, his intelligence, you go, wow, this is something incredible. And I'm not saying it needs to be every single game of every single season, but that conversion of being able to take over games in big moments or finish off chances like that, I would think when I look at just Liverpool's attack of those types of players, Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, when they get into those positions, they are killers, right? And they're killers consistently. Now, they might miss a chance in a final like that, but then the next game they're going to go and do the same thing again.
Right. No, that's fair. I guess my big fear, I'm trying to be silver lining, glass half full type guy here. But there's a part of me going, is this it? Is this as good as Christian Pulisic's going to get? And that's the flip side of this conversation: is has he hit his ceiling? Well, it's interesting.
Even if he did hit his ceiling, as long as he finishes, then you would be fine with that for the rest of your career. You'd say that's the pinnacle. If you get in the positions he does and the movement, and you can beat people in the dribble, but now you're scoring and you're creating and having assists, good.
That would go past the ceiling then, or the current ceiling then, if he was doing that consistently.
I'm talking about as far as like elevating his game even further.
Sure.
Outside of the finished product, you don't need that. And I think for him, it's just having that the maturity in front of goal.
Well, surprise for you guys, we got Christian Pulisic on right now. Welcome, Chris. I'm just kidding. Would that be amazing if he came on? We'll have to save that for another time. We are done for today's show, and Soccer We Trust is over. So on behalf of producer Des and Charlie Davies and Heath Pierce, I'm Jimmy Conrad saying thank you for listening to In Soccer We Trust. Thank you for all your likes and subscribes and all the ratings and reviews, the positive ones at least, that you're giving us. We really appreciate it. And make sure you come back on Thursday for the live stuff here on the YouTubes, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Also, we have a special guest coming up, and we can't reveal it yet. It's just going to be a big tease, but it's going to be happening this week like it does every single week. All right, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for your support. Later.